Felt like a really long time. Really, was it as cool for you as it was in my brain? I conceived this idea. All right, fuck. I just want to start out by saying that I love you all very much. I don't know. Oh, I know you. I love you all very much. I have a lot of love in my heart tonight, and I want you to know that I'm a crier. I come from a long line of criers. Some of you who know my family know that my father cried during the climactic scene with El Boogie at the end of Sister Act 2. And I was on an airplane. So I wrote this show a few weeks ago called, the funniest moment of my show is when you were fucking playing a cab driver. So I wrote the show a few weeks ago. It's called Get Woke, White America. But that is not the show that I'm going to perform for you tonight. What I'm going to present is largely a reaction to last week's election. It is a work in progress, certainly. And I beg your pardon and your forgiveness for using my notes, but I'm going to be using my notes. I rewrote the show on Friday night at 3 a.m. So enjoy. Writing Get Woke was a pretty massive feat for me because I am a world-class procrastinator. I am the most procrastinating motherfucker on the planet, and I wait to the last minute to do anything, and I have always done that, and it has always really worked out because I rely on my charm, my decent looks, and my white privilege. And it's worked out well. And let's face it, we live in a world where non-white males have to be pretty fucking extraordinary to succeed. Yet white males can just be mediocre and fail up all the time. And I say that as a mediocre white male. But I wrote a show, and little by little I chipped away at that show, and I came up with all these funny bits. I even choreographed a big Broadway dance number to open the show, which obviously that wasn't it. But this is my solo show, right? And if I'm going to do a solo show, it's going to have a huge, big Broadway dance number, right? Because it's my show, so I can do that. I spent hours trying to figure out a way to talk about white privilege that wasn't condescending, that wasn't a lecture, that would be self-deprecating enough that you would actually come along for the ride and not get super defensive and listen to what I actually had to say. And I left my meeting with my director last Tuesday. And I felt fucking fired up. I felt inspired. I was getting closer. I felt like I was actually going to pull this thing off. I was going to make you laugh. I was going to make you think. We were all going to get a bunch of drinks afterwards. My mom, you were going to know, before my mom, you guys were going to come up to me and tell me how smart the show was with just like the right amount of edge. My mom was going to give me like this huge hug that only moms can give and tell me how proud of me she was. And how smart I am, and my dad wouldn't have to, because you would hear his big laugh, right? And his big laugh is way different than his normal laugh. And I haven't heard his big laugh in a theater setting since It's Complicated, Christmas Day 2009. When Alec Baldwin grabs Meryl Streep's pussy and says, "It's good to be home." But to be fair to my dad, that pussy grab was completely consensual. I began to watch the results of the election roll in on Tuesday night, and I was lit up with giddy anticipation around my show. I was on the other side of a breakthrough, and I was so excited to sit next to my wife, someone who has worked so fucking hard to become successful in a world in which women have to work twice as hard as men just to earn 80 cents to the dollar. And we were going to watch the hardest working woman in the history, probably the hardest working human being in the history of public service, become president of the United States. And I had been thinking for weeks and weeks about calling my mom that night and crying tears of joy as we celebrated her candidate. Because Bernie was my guy, I'm not gonna lie, we'll talk about that later. My mom loves Hillary. There's photos in my house. She's paid way too much money to be in a room just so she can have a photo taken with her. We have 2 separate photos of my mom with Hillary. My mom believes in Hillary. She loves Hillary, and it's not just because they share a passion for Eileen Fisher pantsuits. So my mom loves Hillary. And I love my mom. I love my mom. I couldn't wait to share that joy. And in Florida was too close to call, and then North Carolina slipped away, and the blue wall came crumbling down, and I felt physically ill. Straight up, I had the shits. Which I have a sour tummy to begin with. So I retreated to the toilet to watch the world die on Twitter. And then I don't buy plastic water bottles. That's how weird I am. I don't compost though. So before they officially called Michigan or Pennsylvania, I retired to bed where Stacy was already hiding from the world. And this is really schmoopy. This is the schmoopiest thing I'm going to say all night. But for the first time in 15 years of cohabitation, we actually held hands as we fell asleep. I know, I said it. I don't know about her, but I fell into I know she probably didn't, but I fell into a shockingly restful sleep that night. I don't know why. I don't know why we held hands either. I don't know if it was some sort of primal urge to take care of each other. I woke up Wednesday, and probably a lot of us in this room, I had that moment, that fleeting moment, which is actually one of my favorite moments, where you realize that you didn't shit your fucking pants during your first date, or you didn't completely blow off a deadline, or you didn't get pegged by Ann Coulter, but it was just a terrible nightmare. It wasn't real. That's whether getting pegged by Ann Coulter is a nightmare. Maybe that's just my nightmare. But I knew it was just. I woke up and it was like just a terrible dream, and I realized that, and I was like, that's my favorite feeling. And then I heard the living room and the TV, and I heard my beloved Pat Kiernan, a New York One, doing his ridiculous In the Paper segment, where he literally reads you the paper. I pulled the sheets back over my head, and my mind went reeling through this catastrophic montage. Everything looked like the bad 1985 from Back to the Future 2. Biff is in charge, and Michael J. Fox can't fucking believe that Biff is in charge. I thought about Chris Christie as this human fucking wrecking ball demolishing weed dispensaries in Colorado. I had visions of a rabid Rudy Giuliani burning hijabs on the floor of the UN. There were Bernie bros on every corner screaming, "I told you so! I told you so! Bernie would have won Pennsylvania, bro!" I saw smirking Steve Bannon branding Muslims with crescent moons as they entered internment camps, and there was Mike Pence and the six-fingered man in the pit of despair using the machine to torture the gay away. And then I thought of my students, my beautiful students, who I have to face with embarrassment and shame because we adults had once again let them down. And then I thought about my president, Barack, Barry, my hero, my man crush, standing next to that swollen, smarmy demagogue on an icy January winter day, watching a great blowhard snake charmer swear a presidential oath. And I laid in bed and I wept, and then I got the shits again. And there, doubled over in gastrointestinal discord, I realized, oh fuck, my show. Fuck. My witty, nuanced, self-deprecating exploration of white privilege seemed trivial and immediately dated in a post-election, post-president-elect Donald J. fucking Trump world. So I sat there on the can, realizing that the show I had written and was set to perform in 8 days' time was largely irrelevant. Get woke, white America? It turns out white America was wide the fuck awake. And that the rest of America, in my silly little show, were royally fucked. And I freaked out, and I am still freaking out. Over the last week, I have screamed in the middle of the street. I have cried on the subway. I spent an hour in a coffee shop doing research on how to become a Zen Buddhist monk. And I am most ashamed to say that I engaged in the greatest exercise in futility. I have argued with strangers on Facebook. To be fair, after scream typing numerous accusations of white fragility, I would end every post with, "But I love you." I have oscillated back and forth on who should receive my rage. One moment, it's college-educated suburban white women. Then it's poor, rural white men before making a sharp left turn and landing on Hillary and her campaign team, who after losing Michigan to a Democratic socialist, took those people's votes for granted and then called their kinfolk deplorables. I have screamed at white lefties on my TV like Michael Moore and Bill Maher for making excuses for working class white America, all of a sudden our most vulnerable population. I have loathed baby boomer retirees in Tampa suburbs with their lily white country clubs and their early bird dinners, and I have wished chlamydia and Lyme disease on every Reagan Democrat in Macomb County, Michigan. I just remember that was there. And fuck Nate Silver and his electoral college protection. And for that matter, fuck every nerdy white dude in front of a finicky fucking touchscreen on TV. And fuck rich white men, you self-proclaimed masters of the universe. Fuck you the most, you self-congratulatory pricks, you protectors of the mediocre, you cultureless cowards in your covered fucking wagons, and fuck me. Fuck Paul Gutowski. Fuck me. Liberal, pseudo-intellectual, neo-hippie, faux socialist pinko poser. Your entire career is a pathetic expression of white guilt, you fucking asshole. It's been tough. But fortunately, for everyone, including myself, my greatest strength is my capacity for empathy. And while I may be the things that I just listed about myself, and while the folks on the other end of my expressions of rage certainly deserved my venom, I can at least stay curious to figure out where everyone is coming from. So let's start with a suburban, college-educated white woman who voted for a sexual abuser and a misogynist. I can only begin to imagine the psychological impact of living in the patriarchy. I don't know. Maybe it has some sort of Stockholm syndrome effect. Or maybe a vote for the Donald is a vote for the status quo. And they're willing to forego equal pay and reproductive rights for a world in which being a white woman is better than, say, being anything other than a white woman. I mean, obviously a white man. Maybe she feels really safe the way things are. Perhaps she's learned to navigate a world of unwanted sexual advances and casual date rape enthusiasts. Maybe she prefers the devil she knows. And the poor, rural, undereducated white male, I mean, shit, this guy just wants change, right? To stop being fucked by giant corporations who are more interested in their bottom line than keeping his job in America. Is it this guy's fault that he's been told his entire life that the American dream was his if he just worked hard, that he was entitled to it, that he deserved it? And when he feels like the thing that he's been promised is being taken away, he has a chance to take it back by any means necessary, he's going to feel pretty fucking motivated to vote. And maybe he probably definitely doesn't see the connection between his feelings of deservedness and white supremacy. Or maybe he does and doesn't give a fuck, but either way, that guy just got sold a monorail. And Hillary, that picture of her hiking was so tough to digest. She looked like she was at peace, and she deserves that, certainly. But she fucked up and underestimated her opponent again. And yeah, she definitely regrets insulting a large group of angry white Americans. But those guys were acting like total cocksuckers. And let's never ever forget that she won the popular vote by 2 million votes in a country that has literally and figuratively been burning powerful, intelligent women for 400 years. I'm the spoiled, fragile, rich, white male voter. Oh, fuck. Those fortunate sons who live blissfully in a world created to meet their every need, who demonstrate little to no curiosity about the experiences of others outside of their tribe, unless it is wrapped up in a nice little HBO drama, who have never had to worry about their bodies being destroyed by police, who have never had to have the talk with their children about how to interact with police. They present the greatest test to my empathy, which is interesting because it's who I share the most DNA with. I am them. I have walked among them. I have sat at their dinner tables as they have lamented the lazy Schwarze workers who don't deserve a living wage. I have been on their golf courses as they have whispered into my face, hey, did you hear the one about the nigger and the fag? I've been on the chairlifts in Aspen as they have extolled the virtues of a great extramarital blowjob. And over the years, I have grinned and buried it as they have asked me what I do, and I tell them I'm a social worker, and they say, oh, that's really cool. Or worse yet, oh, good luck with that. And that brings us back to me. I think it's important that you know a little bit more about me. I'm Paul, by the way. Growing up in a relatively diverse community 20 miles outside of the nation's capital and attending extremely diverse elementary school, I was exposed to a multitude of cultures and ethnicities, and I know that this is hard to believe, but like many impressionable white folks before me, I had a uniquely white male experience of becoming obsessed with black culture and black cultural figures. In the words of the immortal Chuck D, Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. My childhood heroes were all black dudes. Patrick Ewing, Art Monk, and most importantly, Michael Jackson. I say most importantly because it is critical for you to know just how obsessed I was with Michael Jackson. He was a god. His music overwhelmed my young, elementary-aged brain, heart, and soul. I would spend countless hours in my sister's room dancing in front of the mirror, trying to emulate his every move. And for an entire year, I dressed like this. Every day. I wore that every day. Not that. I had a few different black and red pleather vests and parachute pants that I would mix. And I never left the house without my sequins glove. That poor glove literally dragged through the filth and muck of a kindergartner's life. Sandboxes, juice boxes, Play-Doh, boogers. My kindergarten teacher, fearing I was being neglected, threatened to call Child Protective Services if the situation didn't change. Looking back, I assumed it was only her implicit bias that prevented her from making the call. I always wonder if she would have given such a warning to a young black child with a snotty mitt. I tell you this because it's crucial to that you understand the very moment I realized that I was white. It was, to put it lightly, a traumatic experience. There I was, as usual, dressed as MJ, sitting in the back seat of my mother's station wagon, navigating a McDonald's drive-thru line when I burst into tears, and I am talking full fucking meltdown. My mother, obviously caught off guard and having zero idea what was wrong with her son, asked me what was wrong. Through the raging river of tears and snot and emotion, I tried to express my pain and frustration, but could only muster hiccups and grunts. My mother, all patience and love and concern, told me to slow down, take a breath, and tell her what was wrong. And I did. And when I regained enough composure, I yelled out at her, "I'm not black!" And then I went straight Niagara Falls again. Only this time I was able to communicate one additional idea. And I sat in the back seat and looked up at her and I told her, "It's your fault!" She, of course, made me, and in her carelessness, it failed to make me black. And so there I was, a white boy, devastated by newfound understanding that I was not black and would never be black. And what a blissful little idiot I was. I had no idea at that point my life would be exponentially easier simply by being able to identify as white. I would never be asked to articulate the thoughts, feelings, or experiences of an entire race simply because I look like them. I would never be followed around a retail store because of my pale white skin. And quick caveat, when I was younger, I used to steal a lot of shit. It was mostly cheap cologne from CVS. Because middle school girls dig cool water. Or so I thought. I mean, despite the fact that throughout my life, at times I have been both druggy and lazy, I have never been stereotyped as such. Maybe besides the people who really knew me. Because we white folks get the benefit of the doubt. As a sniveling little child in the backseat of my mother's car, how could I know that years later, when I was arrested for marijuana possession outside of the 7-Eleven on Sunrise Valley Road, Jesus, that the police would treat me like their son or nephew and drive me home instead of taking me to some sort of juvenile lockup facility. It was impossible for a 5-year-old me to comprehend that months after being arrested, when I finally stood in front of the judge, that he and my lawyer were not only part of the same system that's statistically more punitive towards young people of color, but that they were literally golf buddies. You know, in the version of the show I decided I couldn't do, the big moment, the climax, was when I revealed to you all that I'm a white supremacist. And I know that sounds crazy, but I believe it. And I think all people who perceive themselves to be white are white supremacists. And I understand it's a radical idea that probably makes many of you uncomfortable. It's not my idea. I can't take any credit for it. People much smarter than me developed the idea. People who didn't, like myself, have the option of opting in to the white race. People whose culture has been co-opted when convenient, appropriated when cool, and threatened always. And I'm sure some of you folks have never thought of yourselves as racist, let alone white supremacist, and that's cool. I totally get it. But I want to ask you a few questions, and I want you to answer them to yourself. This is my show. But I want you to answer them honestly. Now these are for, I hate to do this, but these are meant for white audience members only. But to all the people of color in the audience, you've been ignored by white comedians for years, so you should be used to it at this point. Question 1 is real easy, because I know you're already a pretty woke audience. This is New York City, for Christ's sakes. Okay, question 1. Do you think you enjoy a certain level of privilege by being a white person? Just think about that. The answer is yes. Now, second question. Do you believe that others suffer at the cost of your privilege? A little trickier, right? But again, the answer is yes. I'll give you an example. When I would get in front of the judge, and the judge gives me preferential treatment for being white, what do you think that does to the maybe black or Latino kid behind me? Think about it. Third question. Are you doing anything to dismantle the system designed to protect your privilege? And I'm not talking about social media activism, fucking retweeting Sean King. I'm talking about doing things. I'm talking about doing things on actionable, real steps, tangible action. Final question: this is probably the most challenging one. Sorry. Are you prepared to face the consequences of giving up your status? Another quick example here. Next time your friend or loved one is busted with cocaine or whatever, they're going to go straight to prison this time. No rehab this time. Straight to prison. Your loved one or friend. Okay. Cool. All right, how do we do? Let's see. If you answered yes to the first 2 questions, which you should have, and no, and I don't know how you answered the last ones, but no to the last 2, then I hate to be the bearer of some bad news, some devastating news. You are a white supremacist. The great news, however, is that you can make a change, and like drug addiction, the first step is admitting that you are an addict. You are addicted to enjoying the privileges afforded to you in this country simply as by identifying as white. And look, again, I totally get if you don't want to give that up. I mean, 1/4 of the country just voted to preserve the myth of white superiority. You have to do whatever works for you. But I have a plan. I have 2 plans, actually. My first plan, Plan A, we'll call it, is to invite every white person who voted for Donald Trump to come with me to the beach and eat magic mushrooms. They can come individually or in very small groups. And we will lie on the beach, head to head, so not threatening sexually in any way. But we can always reach back to hold hands if we wanted to. We will lie on the beach and check out the stars and just vibe, you know? Just connect. And if mushrooms are too intimidating, then maybe we'll just get some edibles, whatever folks are comfortable with. And I will lead them down a path of enlightenment through psychedelic exploration. That's my promise to all white Trump voters. Come to the beach, I'll get the boomers. Now I recognize that that's an ambitious strategy. Some might say ridiculous. So in the meantime, I will enact Plan B. Plan B. I am going on a mission to slowly and steadily wake people the fuck up to a different reality. I'm going to encourage people who perceive themselves to be white to start asking questions they don't really want the answers to. Don't ask why black people riot in the streets when a boy is killed by police, unless you are ready to fully understand the consequences of systemic racism. For that matter, don't treat your non-white friends like fucking encyclopedias or your own personal Google machines. If you want to know what redlining is, do some fucking research. Look it up. It's all on the internet. I'm going to insist that people who perceive themselves to be white don't ever try and teach a person of color about that person about their color. Fuck, I really butchered that one. Just, if you know someone who is a person of color, don't teach them about their fucking culture. All right? And don't tell them how they should feel, ever, about anything. And stop, all right, and if you perceive yourself as white, stop gentrifying neighborhoods and then sending your kids to private schools. Invest that money in the public schools fucking PTA. Stop fucking segregating schools. And when you have play dates, ask yourself who the fuck you're inviting over to your house and why. Let your racial anxiety drift away a little bit and look people in the eye and talk to them and be curious about their lives. But don't, like the encyclopedia thing. I'm going to challenge people who perceive themselves to be white to not commit the most egregious act of white privilege. To ignore history simply because you can. And if you identify as a white person, every time you say dope or lit or bae, you must pay a cultural appropriation tax. Don't worry, it's not money. You simply have to read a James Baldwin essay or a Nikki Giovanni poem. And if you read The Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois, you get a pass for the whole year. You don't have to Most importantly, perhaps, I will ask those who perceive themselves to be white, who feel the system is working against them, who feel their dream is being taken away, for one moment to imagine what it feels like to be a person who has never felt like the dream was theirs to begin with. I would ask them to imagine the depths of their own pain and consider how it might feel quite similar or even pale in comparison to the pain felt by those who for most of our country's history have not been given a fighting chance at the dream. I will then ask them to consider for a brief period in 1663 in Gloucester County, Virginia, that poor Europeans, indentured servants mostly, and black slaves joined forces to rise up against the shared oppression they faced at the hands of the wealthy elites. And at that moment, they literally scared the idea of the white race out of the wealthy landowners. And those fucking gentlemen farmers, in their quest to maintain their leisure lifestyle, set in motion one of the most effective examples of divide and conquer that our country has ever seen or experienced, and we have not recovered from it today. They gave a taste of status to poor Europeans and put them in charge of black slaves, and in doing so not only created the white race, but the myth of white superiority. I would beg them to imagine what would be possible if they abandoned their white identity and instead chose to identify as human, as worker, or sister and brother to other humans, regardless of racial identity. What a powerful message they could send to the elites who have forgotten them. What change they could accomplish together. And to the white rich men, I will first say, fuck you. And then I will say, but I love you. And I will ask them to consider that over half of the babies born in the United States today will never identify as white. Maybe that just encourages them to work harder and smarter to conspire and manipulate to preserve their white empire. But in the words of the great American poet David Bazan, all empires end, and when they do, it's never pretty. I will implore you, white rich man, to be on the right side of history for once and choose humanity. Now, I mentioned a big Broadway dance number. I'd be remiss if I didn't let you guys experience it. So give me a second. I'm just going to move this over here. I really don't get very excited for this. Or do, I don't know. Do I fuck you up? All right, Matt.